Let me ask you something that most men will never ask themselves. When was the last time a woman looked at you, not just glanced at you, not just smiled politely, but truly looked at you like you were the only person in the room worth paying attention to? Think about that. Because most men are out here complimenting women every single day, telling her she's beautiful, telling her she's smart, flooding her phone with words she's heard 1,000 times from 1,000 different men who wanted something from her. And yet, she still feels unseen. She still feels like no one actually gets her. And here's the part that will shake you: the compliments that make a woman obsess over a man, the ones that make her think about him at 2 a.m, the ones that rewire her psychology and make her feel a pull she can't explain. Those compliments have almost nothing to do with her appearance. Today, I'm going to give you 3 of them, 3 compliments that operate below the surface, 3 things that reach into her psychology and touch something that most men never even know exists. And I'll warn you right now, the 3rd one, the last one, is the most powerful thing I will say in this entire video. Stay with me. Here's why most men fail at this. Not because they don't care, not because they're not trying, but because they were taught the wrong game. From the moment men start noticing women, the world hands them a script. Say this, do that, compliment her eyes, buy her flowers, tell her she's gorgeous. And if that doesn't work, compliment her more. Push harder, be more available, be more. And the tragedy is, none of it works the way you think it does. Because women are not simple, and the ones worth your time, the emotionally intelligent ones, the ones with depth and self-awareness and real standards, they've heard every surface-level compliment you could possibly give. They've been complimented on their face, their body, their laugh, their hair since they were teenagers. Those words land on them like rain on stone. They feel nothing. They respond politely, and then they forget you by Thursday. But every once in a while, rarely, unexpectedly, a man says something different, something that pierces through, and she doesn't forget him. She can't. This is the psychology we're exploring today. And to understand it, you have to be willing to look at human desire, not as a surface phenomenon, not as chemistry or attraction or good looks, but as something far deeper, something rooted in a woman's need to be witnessed, to be understood, to be valued for what no one else has ever valued her for. That is the emotional territory we are walking into today. And if you're the kind of man who is willing to truly understand a woman at that level, not to manipulate her, but to genuinely connect with her in a way that 99% of men never will, then this video is for you. Wake up, pay attention, because most men will watch this and go back to the same script they've always used. You're going to be different. Before we go any further, if you found your way to this channel, something in you is already searching for something deeper, something more real, and that matters. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel is built for men who are serious about understanding themselves, understanding women, and building a life rooted in self-respect and genuine power. Not games, not tricks, real understanding. Like this video if it's already speaking to something in you, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read them, every single one. Let's build something real together. Now, let's get into it. 3 compliments. That's all this is. But by the time I'm done walking you through each one, the psychology behind it, the reason it works, the reason most men never think to say it, you are going to see women and human connection itself in a completely different way. Number 1 is about her mind. Number 2 is about her courage. And number three is about something so intimate, so quietly devastating in its accuracy that most women cry the first time a man gets it right. Let's begin. Number 1, you notice the way she thinks and you tell her. Most men look at a woman and see what she looks like. The rare man looks at a woman and sees how she operates, how she processes the world, how she connects ideas, how she moves through a conversation, not just what she says, but why she says it and what she leaves unsaid. And when that man opens his mouth, he doesn't say, "You're beautiful." He says something like, "The way your mind works genuinely fascinates me." Or, "I noticed the way you framed that, most people wouldn't have thought of it like that." Or even something as simple as, "You think differently than most people. I mean that." Now, stop and feel that for a second. Because a woman who has spent her entire life being complimented on her appearance, her style, her smile, and then suddenly encounters a man who sees her mind, that woman experiences something she has almost certainly never felt from a man before. She feels witnessed. Psychologically, this touches a wound that most high-value women carry in silence. The wound that says, people only see the surface of me, that my value to others is tied to how I look, how agreeable I am, how useful I am to their life, not to who I actually am beneath all of that. When you compliment her intellect, not in a generic, you're so smart way, but in a specific, observed, genuine way, you are communicating something profound. You are saying, I was paying attention to you, not to your body, not to your potential usefulness in my life, to you, to the actual texture of your thinking. And that is intoxicating. Here's the key psychological mechanism at work. Humans, all of us, have a deep, primal need to be known, not admired, not desired, known, to have someone look at us and see past the performance we put on for the world and actually touch the real thing underneath. Most relationships, even long ones, never get there. Most people go their entire lives feeling partially invisible. When a man creates that feeling of being truly seen intellectually in a woman, he becomes associated in her mind with something she's been hungry for her whole life. She will think about you, not because you're the most handsome man she's ever met, not because you said something smooth, but because you made her feel like her mind was worth studying. Now here's the trap most men fall into, even when they're trying to do this right. They make it generic. You're so intelligent, that lands flat. It sounds like a compliment you'd give anyone. It sounds, frankly, like flattery. The power of this compliment lives in its specificity. You have to actually be paying attention. You have to notice a particular way she framed something, a specific insight she offered, a unique connection she made between two ideas. The way you explain that thing about your sister, the way you understood her motivation, without making it about yourself, that's actually rare. That is a compliment that will follow her home. And here's what the Stoics understood about this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the quality of your attention is the quality of your life. Where you direct your focus tells the world and the person you're with what you actually value. When you pay that quality of attention to a woman's mind, you're not just complimenting her. You're demonstrating who you are. You're demonstrating that you are a man of depth, awareness, and genuine curiosity. A man who isn't just looking for a warm body or a pretty face to fill the silence. And women, the right kind of women, feel that distinction immediately. But this is just the beginning, because noticing her mind is powerful. But what comes in, number 2, reaches even deeper. It reaches into the part of her she's afraid to show anyone. Number 2, you see her courage and you name it. Let me paint a picture for you. She's told you about something she did, something that on the surface sounds ordinary. Maybe she left a job that was slowly suffocating her. Maybe she ended a relationship that looked perfect from the outside. Maybe she said something in a room full of people that no one else was willing to say. Maybe she just made a hard decision alone, without anyone to validate her, without anyone holding her hand. And she tells you this story almost casually, like it's nothing, like she's half embarrassed to even bring it up. Most men nod politely. Maybe they say that's cool or good for you. They move on to the next topic. The rare man pauses and he says, do you realize how much courage that took? Most people never do that. They live their whole lives making the safe choice. You didn't. I want you to hear that. And she goes quiet, not because she doesn't know what to say, but because something in her just broke open. Here's the psychology. Women, particularly independent, high-achieving, emotionally resilient women, are rarely given permission to acknowledge their own bravery. In fact, many of them have been quietly trained to minimize it, to not make too much of their own hard choices, to not take up too much space with their own pain or their own victories. When a woman makes a courageous decision, she almost never hears a man say, "That was brave." "I see what that cost you." She hears, "That was risky." Or, "Are you sure that was the right call?" Or she hears nothing at all. The cumulative effect of this is that she stops trusting her own courage. She starts second-guessing her instincts. She starts performing steadiness instead of actually feeling it. And then you come along and you name what she actually did. You call it what it was, brave. You don't minimize it. You don't over-explain it. You don't turn it into a lesson about yourself. You just hold a mirror up to her and let her see something she hasn't been willing to see. That is not a small thing. From a Stoic framework, this is the practice of seeing things as they are. Not filtered through ego, not colored by what you want to see, but genuinely observing what is true and naming it with honesty and precision. Epictetus said that we suffer not from the events of our lives, but from our judgments about them. For most women, the judgment about their own courage is distorted. They've been told, directly or indirectly, that their hard choices weren't that hard, that they're being dramatic, that they should just move on. When you correct that distortion, when you say with quiet certainty, what you did was brave, you are offering her something no spa day, no bouquet, no expensive dinner can replicate. You are offering her clarity about herself. And in that moment, you become the person who helped her see herself more truthfully. Think about what that does to the way she feels about you. She will measure future men against the way you made her feel in that moment. She will remember the specific feeling of being recognized by you. And whether she admits it to herself or not, she will find herself drawn back to you because you gave her something the world spends most of its time withholding from her. But I want to be careful here because this is a point where men misuse what I'm telling them. This only works, this only matters if it's real. You cannot manufacture this. You cannot study a woman for 30 minutes and then perform a calculated observation about her courage to trigger a reaction. Women are extraordinarily sensitive to authenticity. They can feel the difference between a man who genuinely sees them and a man who is performing the act of seeing them. The Stoics had a word for this: integrity, the alignment between what you say and what you actually observe, between your words and your actual inner experience. If you don't actually mean it, don't say it. But if you do see her courage, if you truly observe it, then name it. Name it clearly. Name it without hesitation. Give it back to her like something she dropped and didn't know she was missing. That is a compliment she will carry for the rest of her life. And now we're heading somewhere much darker, much deeper, much more intimate. Because number 2 was about what she's done. Number 3 is about who she is when she thinks no one is paying attention. Number 3, the compliment that rewrites her. I need you to read carefully here. What I'm about to tell you is the most psychologically precise, the most emotionally powerful, and the most rare thing a man can say to a woman. Most men will never say it, not because it's difficult to understand, but because most men never observe at a deep enough level to even have access to it. This is the one. There is a version of every woman that she keeps almost entirely hidden. Not the version she shows at work, not the version she puts on Instagram, not the version she performs in social situations where she needs to be on. I'm talking about the version that surfaces in quiet moments. The way she gets soft and almost childlike when she's truly comfortable. The way she laughs when something genuinely catches her off guard before she has time to make the laugh more presentable. The way she talks about something she loves, something that lights her up from the inside, and for a moment completely forgets to be composed. The way she treats strangers when she thinks the interaction doesn't count. The small private rituals she has. The way she gets absorbed in something and loses track of time. The look on her face when she reads something that moves her, before she's decided whether she's going to cry. These are glimpses of her actual self, the unperformed version, the version beneath the version. And the compliment, the one that rewrites her psychology, is when you look at her and say, with quiet absolute certainty, I see who you actually are when you're not performing. And that person, that real version of you, is the most interesting thing about you. Or maybe it sounds like, most people only see the version of you that you show them. I don't think that's the most beautiful thing about you. I think what you're like when you forget to be on that version, that's who I'm actually here for. Or, even more devastating in its simplicity, you don't have to perform for me. I already like the real one better. Now sit with that, because here is what happens in a woman's nervous system when she hears those words from a man she respects. Something unlocks. Psychologically, we are wired from childhood to perform for approval. We learn early on which parts of ourselves are acceptable, which parts get rewarded, which parts get punished or ignored. And over time, we build a social self, a curated, managed version of who we are that we offer to the world because we've learned it's safer than offering the real thing. Women in particular experience enormous social pressure to perform constantly, to be pleasing, to be put together, to manage how they're perceived with exhausting precision. Most women have been doing this for so long that they've almost forgotten the unperformed version of themselves exists. And when a man, a calm, grounded, observant man, quietly says, I see the one underneath all of that, and she's the one I find extraordinary, the performance crumbles, not in a messy way, not in a falling apart way, in a relief way. in a finally someone sees me way, in a way that she will describe to her best friend 3 weeks later as, I don't know, there's just something about him. He sees me differently than anyone else ever has, and she won't fully understand it herself. She'll try to rationalize it. She'll tell herself it's his looks or his confidence or his humor. But underneath all of that, the truth will be simpler. He saw her, the real her, and he chose that over the performance. Now here is the Stoic architecture of this entire concept, and it's important. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. What he was describing was a man at peace with reality as it is not reality as he wants it to be. Not the performance of reality, but the thing itself. When you see a woman's authentic self and choose it when you communicate that the real thing is more valuable to you than the polished thing you are practicing, that same Stoic discipline, you are refusing to be satisfied with the surface. You are insisting on truth, and women at the deepest level of their psychology are drawn to men who live in truth. Not men who say what they think she wants to hear. Not men who perform strength or perform confidence. Men who actually see clearly, because a man who sees clearly is the only man who can truly be trusted. He can't be fooled by performances. He can't be manipulated by illusion. He sees things as they are, and if he sees her as she is and stays, then she knows something she has never been able to fully know about any other man in her life. She knows it's real. She knows she is enough, not the performance of her, not the version she works so hard to maintain. Her. And that knowledge, that felt sense of being loved for the truest version of yourself, is the rarest, most powerful emotional experience a human being can have. When you are the man who gives her that, you don't have to chase her. She'll find reasons to stay. Now I want to pull back and show you something, because we've been talking about 3 compliments, but what I've actually been describing is a single unified way of being. Notice what these 3 things have in common. The first, noticing her mind, required you to pay deep attention. The second, naming her courage, required you to observe without judgment. The third, seeing her authentic self, required you to be present enough to catch the unguarded moments. Every single one of these compliments is impossible without the same foundational quality. Genuine, unhurried, selfless attention. And here is the devastating truth about why most men never get there. Most men are too busy managing their own anxiety to actually see the woman in front of them. They're thinking about what to say next. They're worrying about how they're coming across. They're calculating. They're performing their own version of the curated self, the confident self, the witty self, the self that has its life together, and in the process, they're not actually present. They're in the conversation, but they're not in it. And women feel this immediately, not consciously, not always articulately, but in their body, in their gut, in the low-level reading of the room that women are often extraordinarily good at. They feel when a man is with them versus when a man is merely adjacent to them. And this is where Stoicism doesn't just become a philosophical framework, it becomes a competitive advantage. Because the Stoic practice of presence, of directing your attention with intention, of releasing the need to control how you're perceived, of focusing on what you can observe rather than what you can perform, that practice is what makes all 3 of these compliments possible. A scattered, anxious, self-focused man cannot see her mind. He's not paying close enough attention. A man who needs her approval cannot name her courage. He's too busy trying to earn her approval to reflect it back to her. A man who is performing confidence cannot recognize when she drops her performance. He's too busy maintaining his own mask to notice when hers slips. But a man who has done the quiet, unglamorous work of knowing himself, who doesn't need her to see him a certain way, who is not driven by anxiety or desperation, that man has both hands free. He can actually look at her, and when he looks at her, he sees her. And the entire dynamic of attraction, of connection, of genuine intimacy, it shifts. Not because he said the right things, but because he is the right thing. The words come later, the compliments come later. They are expressions of something real, not strategies deployed to achieve an outcome. And that distinction, that single subtle distinction between being something and performing something, is what separates the men that women forget from the men that women never quite get over. I want to zoom out for a moment because I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be thinking, this is all manipulation. This is a strategy. This is how to get a woman hooked on you by pressing the right psychological buttons. I want to address that directly. The men who use what I've described today as a technique, who memorize the phrases, who deploy them like tools, will fail. Not because the psychology isn't real, it is absolutely real, but because inauthenticity is detectable, because women, particularly emotionally intelligent women, will feel the performance underneath the words. And when they do, the effect is the exact opposite of what was intended. She won't feel seen, she'll feel hunted, and she will pull away. What I'm describing today is not a technique, it is a standard of attention, of presence, of genuine curiosity about the human being in front of you. A standard that says, I am not going to be satisfied with the surface of things. I am going to look deeply, patiently, honestly, and when I see something true, I'm going to say it, not because it will make her feel a certain way, but because truth spoken clearly and without agenda is the most powerful thing one human being can offer another. That is not manipulation, that is connection. And there's a second thing I want to say. Not every woman you meet will respond to depth this way. Some women are not ready for it. Some are in places in their lives where they're not prepared for someone who sees them that clearly. That's not a failure of the approach. It's information. It's useful data about compatibility. And not every situation where a woman seems guarded or distant is a sign of something broken. People are complex. Relationships are complex. The goal of awareness is not to turn every interaction into a psychological case study. It's to move through the world with enough clarity that you recognize what's real and what isn't. But for the woman who is ready for the woman of substance and depth and genuine emotional intelligence, what I've described today is not just effective. It is rare, profoundly, almost incomprehensibly rare, because most men will never do the internal work required to offer it. Will you? Here is what I want you to sit with tonight. Think about the last meaningful conversation you had with a woman you care about, whether that's a partner, someone you're interested in, even a woman who is a close friend, and ask yourself honestly, in that conversation, were you present? Were you actually watching her? Were you listening, not just to the words, but to what was underneath the words? Did you notice anything specific about the way she thought, about something quiet and brave she mentioned, about a moment when the performance slipped and the real person showed up? And if you noticed something, did you say it, or did you default to something safe, something generic, something that didn't cost you any real attention? Because here is the truth about self-respect that most men overlook. Becoming a man who sees clearly is not just about how you see women. It is about how you move through the entire world. The man who pays this quality of attention to a woman is the same man who pays this quality of attention to his own life, to his own choices, to his own patterns and blind spots, and the moments when his performance slips and the real him shows up. Self-awareness and other awareness come from the same source. You cannot truly see someone else until you have done the uncomfortable, unglamorous, deeply necessary work of truly seeing yourself. That is the actual challenge here, not to memorize 3 phrases, not to study women like a puzzle to be solved, but to become the kind of man whose attention is the gift, whose presence is the thing she tells people about, whose clarity makes her feel, for perhaps the first time in her life, that she doesn't have to work so hard to be enough. That kind of man doesn't need strategies, he just needs to show up, fully, honestly, awake. If this video reached something in you, if something I said today landed in a place you didn't expect, then I want to hear from you. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We go deep here. We don't do surface level. Every video on this channel is built for men who are serious about becoming something more than average, more aware, more grounded, more genuinely powerful. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that this content matters, and it helps get these ideas in front of the men who need them most. And leave me a comment. Tell me which of these 3 compliments resonated with you the most. Or tell me about a moment in your own life where someone truly saw you, where someone offered you that rare quality of genuine attention and what it did to you. Because here's what I know after studying human psychology for as long as I have. The hunger to be truly seen is not a weakness. It is not a vulnerability to be ashamed of.